Welcome back, my lords, ladies, and lieges, to another episode of Zodiac Reads, the series where Zodiac finds things to read on the internet, and then, well, he reads them for you. Once again, who would have guessed it, we are back on r/RPG horror stories with another multi-part series, this time a two-parter. This is the first and much shorter part of a two-part series revolving around a certain person called James. While this is only part one, I certainly do hope when part two comes out you can bear with me through that behemoth of a story, because I have quite a few thoughts about this one, to be quite honest. But enough delay, let's get right into it. How a player ruined 2 campaigns and forced me to take action to save the group. Lost Minds spoilers ahead. By user NroV. So, this happened in my first ever campaign I was a player in. One of my good friends invited me to play D&D back in late 2018, and I never played before, but always wanted to, so I said yes. This saga of pain started in early 2019 and only ended in March of 2021. Let's introduce the cast. My friend, the DM. He'll be known as the DM throughout, of course. Me, a tiefling paladin, my first ever character, so he wasn't that great. My other friend, a human wizard who I'll call Fred. Someone I'd never played with before named John, a human fighter. My brother, who I'll call Kyle, playing a human monk. Now that that's out of the way, we can get started with some backstory leading up to this mess. We were playing Lost Minds of Pandalver, so spoilers for that as I said in the title. Our group has bonded together pretty easily and quickly, and my brother and I, both first-time players, were doing our best to learn the game on the fly while being helped by the other players. We fought some goblins, did some stupid things, and made our way into town. First session went well, and so did the next couple of sessions, until suddenly John had to drop out. It sucked, but that left us with 3 players, which wasn't horrible, but we brought in someone else anyway. They also only lasted a few sessions, so we finally brought in one of the DM's online friends. Not really friends, just someone he knew. Enter James, a human bard with a knack for jokes and problem solving, while also being the problem player later on. The way James played his character was always trying to trick enemies and shut down combat, which is fine. When we neared Cragmaw Castle, we encountered a green dragon and we geared up to fight. It's some of our first time playing D&D, and we finally get to fight a dragon. Let's roll initiative. Nope. James manages to convince the dragon to go to Cragmaw Castle and kill all the enemies there. No biggie, we'll fight it there, and that we did. In an epic battle using the castle to trap it, we blew up the dragon and moved on. Later, we were to encounter more combat. Let's roll initiative. No, James managed to send them on their way without issue. Okay, he's consistent and doesn't want to combat, I guess, right? Eventually, we barely fight anything, and it just becomes James negotiating with all enemies he can as the rest of us listen and wait. If it goes wrong, we might get to kill something or interact with it, but it never really went wrong. The game was still fun, but it basically became him talking down everyone and us just sitting there. He became the unofficial face of the group, and as my brother and I were entirely new, we didn't really know what to do. I'd heard of how cool combat in D&D could be, so I decided to, at times when I saw a cool enemy, I'd go fight it. Was it the smartest thing to do? Probably not, but as a paladin, I wanted to try and slay ghosts and race, and finally got the chance to do so in the last dungeon, just before the final boss. I killed the wraith and took its crown and wore it proudly, then joined my team at the door to the final fight with the BBEG himself. We fought long and hard. Just kidding, it wasn't that hard, honestly, but it was really fun. In the middle of the fight, a fire elemental suddenly appeared and attacked me, and only me, and I randomly took a lot of damage. We were only level 5, so taking that much was going to kill me. I healed myself and tanked it as much as I could, letting my team burst down the BBEG. Sadly, I wasn't tanky enough even with fire resistance and succumbed to the damage. I went down and started rolling death saving throws. I succeeded on 1. Nice. 2 left. That was when it happened. With me down, the elemental kinda just vanished. My party killed the boss and everything went still. Then James cast a spell and shot the roof of the room, crumbling it and sending the stones crashing down on the room, with me inside. They had all stayed in the stairwell to fight, and I rushed in to divert the enemy attacks to me as the tank. They were fine, but I was immediately killed by the building falling on me. Oh well, I thought I had finally gotten the combat and experience I wanted, and the fight was pretty cool, especially with the powerful elemental I had to 1v1 to protect my team. A worthy deal, or so I thought. Fast forward a few days, and we're talking. I'm talking to James about the ending, and he reveals something. That elemental? It didn't exist. He had casted an illusion to make it appear and used heat metal on me, to kill me and only me, my first character in the final fight. Confused, I asked why. His answer? You weren't playing your character the way I liked. I wasn't playing my character the way he liked. Maybe that's fair, I thought, but he killed me instead of just talking to me about it. And what did he not like? He never said, just that he didn't like it. Perhaps it was me seeking at least one fight every 2 months instead of being a useless tank so that our party could interact with the game that they didn't like. Maybe it was me seeing a cool item I wanted and killing a wraith to get it. Maybe it was my first character not having a super in-depth backstory, which no one else had either. I don't know what he didn't like so much that he decided to, in the final fight, literally kill me to get across. Now for some minor details. My brother had dropped out a few sessions before the final fight, and if I recall correctly, we had gotten John back with a new character that was really weird, but we didn't mind. So that was our group at the end of it. Me, Fred, John, and James, who had really just soured the ending of my first campaign. Not to fear, we were starting a new campaign, Descent into Avernus, which had just released. We were excited to jump into it, and here's where it got really bad. I will freely and 100% admit that I made mistakes during this time that could have been avoided by me and the DM just talking to James more. But trust me, we did at least try to. We tried again and again. Maybe not as much as we could have, but it didn't matter in the end. So I took up my new character, a Dragonborn cleric, and may or may not have plotted a revenge. I'll see you in part 2, because I think it's going to be a longer one. Part 2 will be long indeed. Trust me, I already recorded it, so I know, but no spoilers for you all out there. Now, in terms of this story itself, I have a bit of an opinion on it that might be a bit of a hot take for some people, and it's personally, I think the DM deserves more blame in this story than OP gives them. Now listen, hear me out. I DM most of the time. I'm not someone who's completely ignorant to like the experience of DMing, and maybe this is a new DM, someone who's brand new and doesn't do confrontation well or whatever it is, or doesn't notice these problems or realize how detrimental they can be, whatever it is, but the OP doesn't say that, so I am going to just interpret that as this is not a brand new DM who has no idea what they're doing. Now, what I mean about this is that, like, again, OP claims that the whole group, other than James, really didn't like that he was diffusing all the fights and they wanted combat and they want to fight and everyone was so bored and couldn't do anything. If that was the case, you know, I would imagine it sounds like somebody brought this to the DM's attention, so why didn't the DM do anything? Why didn't anyone sit down and talk about this and be like, hey, we need to reestablish what we want in this game, because that's what you do. That's what a session 0 was for, where you sit down and you try to talk about what, like, you know, what you want your goals in the game to be. Do you want to roleplay? Do you want to fight? That kind of thing. And obviously James wouldn't have been there if they did a session 0 because he joined in later, but that's why you do, you know, like, hey guys, hold up, before we do our next session, we're gonna sit and have a chat, okay? But like, let's say maybe the DM was completely blind, because, you know, this could be a case where only OP had a problem with the lack of combat, or, you know, none of the group actually told the DM and we're just like, man, can't believe no one can tell we're having a problem because we're not saying anything about it. But even in that case, the part that really gets me, and the part where, OP, man, I think you need to really acknowledge that your DM just let this happen, is the ending bit there. Like, again, and by the way, I just want to clarify, James is a dick. That is an asshole move. You should never, and I do mean never, decide you don't like someone's character or how they play them, therefore the character, like how they play their character is wrong and it should be like removed or changed. You talk about that like an adult. We are not toddlers here. We don't destroy each other's toys because we don't like them. But with that being said, listen, I'm not in the camp where I think all PvP is bad, never have PvP in your games, because with the right players and with the right ground rules and boundaries set, PvP can be really, really fun. But here's the problem. There's a difference between letting your players smack each other around because they role-played an argument and escalated into a fight, and another for being the DM and literally letting a player kill a first-time player because of whatever reasons. When it doesn't really sound like PvP was either not established, or if it was, probably didn't have that kind of boundary on it. Because the only situation where OP would have not known that James was, the one killing them is if the DM was narrating what happened. And the only reason that would be possible is if James either sent him notes or passed notes or sent messages to him saying, oh, I summon the illusion of a fire elemental and I cast heat metal on him. The DM, again, just let that happen. I'm sorry, but if I was a DM in this situation and a player tells me that in secret and seems to have the intention of killing that other player character, especially a first-time fucking D&D player, you know what I'm saying? No, fuck off. You don't get to do that. I'm not allowing it. And even on top of that, even if maybe let's give the DM a benefit of the doubt, maybe he didn't know that James wanted to kill him. He just thought he wanted to do a little bit of damage on him for whatever reason. At the point where the player is down and James literally collapses the ceiling to kill him, yeah, you should have stopped it there. Because you as the DM knew that it was going to kill his player because you decided it did. Because you're the DM, you're God in that world. I'm sorry. This is a very long rant, and I apologize for this to be the closing of my video. Again, if the story is exactly how it's told here, I don't think that you give enough, of the blame here to the DM for letting this happen. I think that you should have placed a little bit more of that responsibility on your DM instead of just making James the devil. And he is an asshole. He's awful. Definitely. I would have hated a player like that, but you know what? If that was my table, he would have been out of my table way before then. Especially if he tried to kill a player. So, I don't know. I'm going to leave it there before I go on any more tangents about it. I'm going to apologize for this being so long, but I would love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments down below, and please do keep an eye out for part 2. Love you all. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time, my lords, ladies, and lieges. Zodiac, out.